Welcome back to Choose Christ Completely. We hope this segment of your time is a blessing to you and your family and deepens your relationship with the Father. I'm Brandon Kegley, and we're here with Justin May, and we're going to talk about the faith of a centurion.
I'm excited about this conversation.
Yeah.
Let's, before we get into exactly that, we always do a little bit of an intro so you can get to know us. And we kind of like to talk about things that we have in common throughout the week so that, just so that we can have a good conversation. And so, in common this week, we were both at an event at church yesterday. And so we barbecued out and just hung out with some folks. So let's just talk about that. Why did you come? You came. I wonder why. What caused you to say I really should be there?
Well, two things. I smoked for the butts, so that was part of it. But the other part is my opinion. There's no point in church unless you're going to spend time and have a relationship with the people that you go to church with. That's the whole point of us gathering together. It's not so that we hear your sermon. That's part of it. It's not so that we sing songs.
Yeah.
It's so that we slowly build relationships with those that we're around, and we can find a way to do life together, whether it's somebody who's 10 years younger than me or 40 years older than me. I can no longer say 50 because, I'm in my 30s. But,
yeah,
there's
still some of those.
There are still some
There's
of those.
still some of those, but less and less as we age.
There is. We're slowly getting to the kids. We're calling them kids. But that was the reason, right? Is and at times something like that is a great time to do it because you're eating, you're playing cornhole, or you're watching somebody throw a ball at a dunk tank. Just it's more casual, more convenient.
Yeah. And so I would agree with you that the reason why you stay for things and you show up early is because you're wanting to connect with someone. I feel like, and I don't know if this is like a personal thing, and you can speak into this too, but like I kind of feel like even just outside of church, I don't have a lot of friends.
Yeah.
Outside of, it's like our world has pushed us into all of your friends are online.
Right.
And you've got Facebook friends, and I got a lot of those. There's like 3,000 plus of those, but you're not really friends.
Right.
If they were to ask, what do you know about me? They would say,
he's a pastor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or he paints some things, because I've seen that,
Yeah.
but they don't know anything else about me.
Yeah.
And so, like, I really think that we are, as a culture, the more the internet intertwines with our life, the more desperate we
Sure.
are for community and connection with other people.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not a scientist or psychologist, and I have done reading of this in the past, but not enough to speak with authority. So take what I say with a grain of salt. But I think there's a pretty good correlation between the rise of anxiety and stress with the input of technology in your life.
Very much so.
And I don't know that this is the case, but I do wonder if it's that the more technology we have, the less human connection we really have.
I would typically agree. And I think sometimes the church has failed to adjust itself to that reality and find ways, like we did yesterday, to create human interaction on a scale. In some ways, I would view it as the church's failure that they've allowed the devil to permeate and create this great online experiment that he undoubtedly has full influence over. And the church hasn't found a way to step in and fill the void of, there's a study a couple of years ago where it found 8th graders. They had this massive problem with online bullying. And what they had found was that the reason they did is because they spent all this time online. They never saw when they said you're fat to the kid, what the kid's reaction was. So us growing up and the generations before us, if we saw it, we saw how it impacted that other person. And so slowly over time, we learned, all right, that's probably not something we should do. But if you never see the other person's reaction, you never really know.
It's like you've become desensitized
Correct.
to your own
Correct.
words and behaviors.
Yeah.
I didn't have a cell phone until I was like, I think I was 16 years old.
Yeah, same.
And the cell phone I had, you couldn't text from. Texting wasn't really a thing in my age bracket. It was a thing, but I think it cost you like, 5 cents, 10 cents a
Something
text
like that,
message.
yeah.
It was something stupid.
Yeah.
And you bought a certain number every month and your family shared all of those. And if you texted too many times, it cost like 10 cents every text you sent.
Yep.
And you got in trouble at home. And so
Yeah.
the phone I had anyway was just a regular phone dial. It was it had the numbers, and then on top of the numbers, it had like 3 of the different letters, and you had to become skilled at if I want to get the B, I hit two twice.
Yeah.
You had to become skilled at how you did that, and never appealed to me. Never appealed to me to learn that system because honestly, dude, I'm a horrible speller.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to ever watch me type and stuff, my computer corrects me so often.
Right.
I use Grammarly. I don't know if you know what that is, but I have to use it because I just can't spell. I'll spell one of the words that I struggled spelling, and this is just confession, was the word vulnerable. I said Jesus' miracles made him more vulnerable. And it took me forever to figure out vulnerable was VU.
You're trying to spell venerable?
Yeah, it's and it kept going back to venerable. And I was like, no, that's not what I want. I know that's not the word. So I do think you're right on it, man, that if you don't get hear and experience their reaction, it's so much easier to shoot something off.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, again, I think that's the whole point of church. It's not, again, to gather on a Sunday and do something. It's there's got to be some time before and after. And, sometimes the after is harder because you've got various things that you've got to get done for the day. But in general, stuff like what we just had was, I think it's very important for the health of the church and for the health of the flock. And the flock's all of us, not just me, you too, right?
And so and
the more human connection and emotional connection you have, if somebody does something that you don't necessarily agree with, you have a better understanding of why they got to that point. Otherwise, you're just looking and say, why in the world would they do that? That's stupid. But once you know where it's coming from, it's a little easier to not see it as stupid, but hey, I probably might have done the same thing if I was in their shoe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to push into it just a little bit, and I'm probably going to have to give you some time to think, but did you have any conversations yesterday that maybe you wouldn't have normally had? On a Sunday morning, you would never have normally spent 10, 15 minutes with that person. Do you have any of those?
Two
of them?
Two. And I tell you, I'm terrible with names. So I'll remember your face till the day I die, but your name, it takes me a while for it to stick. You might know the guy I played cornhole against. I would have probably never had, any sort of conversation or an experience with him. But because we played cornhole against him, there was some, an ice breaking that was a little easier to handle. And then as we're kind of cleaning up, a conversation with a 16-year-old that I've never had, just because it's just, you're not going to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm naturally, despite what I'm doing on this podcast, I'm naturally a quiet person.
And you're in your 30s, right?
Yeah.
So confession time, you're in your 30s. He's half your age.
Oh, yeah.
How often do you have a conversation with someone that's half your age?
Not often, unless there's something like that kind of coalesces and you can have it.
Yeah.
I guess I can have some conversation with some teenager boys because as long as they're working out, because I understand what it's like to work out. But, you know, if you're not finding ways to, we talked about this a little bit before, but if you're not finding ways to, if you don't know how to create the relationship, sometimes it's just simple as serving. I think mom and dad have said that some of the best conversations that are had are while people are stuffing backpacks.
Oh, yeah.
I think Cindy posted that maybe one time on Facebook about best conversation she's had with Theo is while she's washing dishes with him.
Mm-hmm.
Just that act of doing something with your hands or your feet or whatever it is, your brain naturally wants to spit stuff out.
Yeah. It's like that shared experience,
Mm-hmm.
When you're moving chairs together, even though it's really not that big of a job, but you're moving chairs together. And when you have a goal of something that you're accomplishing with someone else, like that shared experience brings more what I would think is genuine relationship, right? Because we're both trying to get these tables back in this room, and we're both trying to get these chairs back where they belong. And
I think, that's, if you don't know it, part of the whole reason you and I have a relationship is because of what? Do you remember? You remember the first time we really ever met?
Oh, the first time we ever met.
He's getting really old.
My brain sucks sometimes. All right, I'm guessing
mission trip.
That's what I was getting ready to say. I'm guessing it's a Cherokee mission trip.
And we had a common goal, and there was nothing else to do. So what do?
Right.
As you're doing stuff, you just naturally have conversations.
Exactly. Exactly.
Found out we like Battle of the Clans at the time.
Oh yeah.
So that
Clash of Clans, not Battle of the Clans.
That was
it was a
like
long
15
time
years
ago.
ago.
It was. It was.
But stuff like that just creates deep and you got to find a way to break the ice.
Yeah. And that takes a sacrifice of time.
Sure.
Right? Because all of us are stretched as thin as we can be with time. And it could be another technology problem that we even know what time is. Let's go back all the way back to knowing exactly when time happens.
One of the mission trips we went on was to Eagle Butte, South Dakota. And if you don't know Eagle Butte, at least it was, probably still is, the second poorest county in the country. First was McDowell County, and Eagle Butte was second. But a whole lot of different things there that we could talk about. But one of the fascinating things about it is you have this town, and there's really just empty, barren land everywhere else. But in the town, they have a clock tower, and it rings twice a day. And that's the only time the residents know what time of the day it is. So they're just doing whatever they're doing. It's like, oh, it's 12 p.m.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 12 a.m. Outside of that, they don't really pay attention to time. There's probably some good and bad to all of that.
Oh, there's definitely good and bad to that.
But
for sure.
But anyway.
Yeah, and so I think.
Well, and I think some of all this plays into the passage, really, right? We'll get into it, but having when we've talked about it before, but having a more personal relationship with someone actually allows you to disciple better, and you get discipled better as well.
Yeah. Well, you said that's one of the issues in the church right now. And I would agree with you. One of the biggest issues in the church is up till about maybe, I don't know when the shift would have happened, but COVID definitely accelerated it. But the shift when content was no longer the goal. For the longest time, one of the goals of the church has been information to content people, to help them contextualize their world, to give them information. At one point in culture, the pastor was probably a very trusted source of like hey, if the pastor says it,
Mhm.
it's probably true.
Yeah.
And that's no longer the case, right?
Yeah.
The pastor says it. Let's Google it, make sure.
Yeah.
Uh, which may be true, right?
Yeah.
You probably should Google everything the pastor says, but it's moved from a need of content to a need of community
Yeah.
because the content is insane. There's no
Oh,
way
sure.
for a 300 person church in Southwest Virginia to keep up with the content of just fill in the blank of Life Church or of, I can't think of any of the other big ones. What's some of the bigger ones?
Oh, in the area or
No,
just
just in
general?
general.
Like Elevation
Yeah,
or,
exactly.
you know.
They can produce the content. They
Sure.
can, and so we're not competing on that.
Yeah.
In fact, you're not watching or listening to this podcast for content because you could find better.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah.
You're listening to it, you're participating in it because of community.
Yeah.
Because of relationship.
Well, and I've long thought that if the church doesn't fill the role, the devil will.
Yeah.
If the church doesn't fill the role, the devil will. So if the church doesn't create the community, the devil will, because that's what he wants.
All right.
But wherever the church is, the devil won't be.
So that means that if that's one of the things we have to be more intentional about, parts of that is our space is not conducive to that.
No.
Our spacing as far as is conducive to services, right? We've designed things for services, which
Not
we
intimacy.
need services, right? Yeah. We need worship sessions. We need
you
centralized teaching. We need all that stuff. And I'm not saying that's not stuff we try to focus on. But if you look at the size of our lobbies, both of the lobbies in this building, this lobby, we're in the sanctuary side of CCC, which if you've never been here,
we're under the steeple. Yeah,
there's 3 parts of the building. And if you just Google it, you'll see the steeple. This building, probably half of it is sanctuary. And then maybe 40% of it, 30% of it is rooms throughout the building. And then how big's the lobby?
It's a pretty big lobby.
Maybe 10, 15%.
I mean, you could probably fit 75 people in it just standing around.
10, 15%.
Yeah.
And so most churches, you know what they're doing? Like if we were to start from scratch and tear this down, have people train us and teach us, they would do a 50-50 model.
50% lobby.
The 50% lobby. So like sanctuary, if it is 1,000 square feet, which I know all of them are bigger. I just don't know. I'm not a numbers guy, you know. If I'm a numbers guy, it's like, it looks like there's 100 people here. That's my kind of numbers. I'm good at that.
Justin would not have been a good spy or a good scout.
No. But if a sanctuary is 1,000 square feet and you're building a new building, then the lobby's 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like 50-50. And then the other rooms are just bonuses. Yeah. And so it's to create exactly what we're saying, the need for spaces for community. Yeah. And so what didn't work yesterday? I think there's some things.
The heat, you know.
Yeah.
I was pouring sweat.
Yeah.
So, you know, we need some sort of covered space.
Yeah.
You know, need some flatter space too.
Yeah, so, you know, I think one of the things you can think about in the way that my brain thinks about it, and this is for everybody, I kind of think we need larger spaces for more people to hang out.
Yeah.
You know, kind of a funnel that funnels them in, but is harder to get out. You know, I don't know if that makes sense. So like spaces where people naturally want to be like, I'm just going to sit there for 10 more minutes, 15 more minutes. Man, that 15 minutes could really make a huge difference in someone's life. Yeah. And so the way my brain thinks about it is indoor space costs quite a bit of money. And we live in arguably the most beautiful part of the world. You you probably couldn't convince me we don't. Um, and like outdoor space is much cheaper.
Yeah.
It's like what?
Half the cost.
Yeah,
Easily.
yeah, easily.
Yeah.
And so that's what my brain says is like, let's design some space here that's really, really nice outdoor space.
Sure. Well, and I mean, if you do that, then it allows people to have events here too that
Right.
are external to the church.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can kind of do it there outside of comma, but yeah, you're capped.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that was one thing. Went to a retirement party, and it was at a church, and they had this very nice pavilion outside. And both Shawnee and I said, I mean, I wish we had something like that.
Yeah.
Just where you could, especially from May to September, you can do a lot of stuff out there that it's just fun.
Yeah.
Put a fireplace in, then you can kind of
Mhm.
extend it out and
Yeah.
do some extra stuff.
Have a few fireplaces or
Yeah.
a few covered spots is
Mhm.
kind of what I was thinking. We went to a church in Arizona, the staff did. And I mean, Arizona is significantly hotter than here,
Mhm.
and they had outdoor space. I
Sure.
mean, they're probably used to it. We weren't quite as used to it. We were like, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But, they had a bunch of outdoor space. It was really nice. They had basketball goals that were set up
Mhm.
close to like seating areas.
Yep.
So it's like they paired, okay, we got this seating area with the basketball
goal.
goals,
This with
and
the
we've got
playground.
this sitting area with the
Yeah.
playground.
Yeah.
We've got, so they paired it to where like they had soccer fields
Mhm.
on their facilities, and they had obviously seating areas designed with covering and all that. Um,
Multiple shelters.
Here's one of the things they did that I thought was also cool was they fed people every week. They ran their own cafe, and essentially to offset the cost, you paid $5 a meal or whatever. They they priced it, set it out. It was warm, and you bought it essentially at their cost. They weren't trying to make any money
Sure.
off of it, just being able to feed people.
Yeah.
So, because just like yesterday, feeding people
Well,
is
we do communion each Sunday.
yeah.
I don't think it was unintentional that
Exactly.
Jesus did,
Exactly.
that Jesus probably crafted some of his most pointed language during the Last Supper.
Yeah.
I think I read something like 40%. It's a massive amount of words of Jesus are in the last week of his life,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a reason for all that,
Yeah.
and probably a lot of it I have never researched it, but I'm sure a lot of that was tied to what he discipled in the Last Supper.
And even
how many times did he do that? Just where it was, it's a gathering of. I mean, disciples don't always record it, but how many of his teachings were gathered around? All right, we're eating. Martha and Mary.
Mm-hmm.
That's stuff like that. It's just food allows for an easy breaking of ice.
It does.
I think that's one of the fallbacks. Just different of circular tables. Is when you have a circular table, you can have more people around it. As far as access goes, but at the same time, there's a limited number of chairs that go around it. So what you tend to get is your family sits with your family, and my family sits with my family, and you get a little bit more of the clique forming rather than it just being.
You put rectangular tables side by side.
Yeah.
And everybody
just has to.
I
think there's benefits to both.
Yeah. This plays into our passage too.
Oh, it does.
It's in the passage as far as meals. So well, cool.
Well, you want to read?
Thanks. Yeah, I do. But I just want to say, man, thanks for all the help yesterday too. You helped tremendously just moving stuff, and it's always good to have partners in that.
Yeah, and I've never been one to watch somebody else do work and me just sit there.
Yeah.
Or beat into me,
Me neither at some level. There are times
Oh, there's
I
time when you have to
will,
ignore it. Yeah. Because
because
if you're
there's
in,
something more
sure,
important in front of
sure.
you.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things is like, hey, if you've got a chance and you're really developing a relationship with someone and you're having a great conversation, don't stop that to move a chair.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
someone will move the chair.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're not, move the chair.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into our passage. We are in the book of Matthew. So this is right after the Sermon on the Mount. Just give a little context. One of the things that I want to give context to before we read it is it says in Matthew 4, verse 13, that Jesus, the NLT says, moved to Capernaum, but the English Standard says he lived in Capernaum. And so Capernaum is where he resides at this time. And so he's coming home from the Sermon on the Mount, essentially, is the way that I view it, coming back to his neighborhood. English Standard says,
I didn't look at it.
you didn't look at it? Here, I'll pull it up.
One thing I would say I think it was Capernaum was intentionally chosen by Jesus because it was a good mix of if you don't know where it's on the northern end of Sea of Galilee, and it was one of the most prosperous towns on the Sea of Galilee, and so because of that, it drew in Jews and Gentiles.
Yeah,
and I think all of that was extremely intentional.
well, I appreciate you knowing more about Capernaum. That's cool. Well, it says so. The English Standard.
Because of that means the Romans that were there were probably some of the more important Romans in the area.
Yeah. So it does say in the English Standard, it translates, it says he lived in Capernaum. And so, in fact, this is where the majority of his miracles are as well, are in Capernaum. And so all I'm saying is I just wanted to give that context to what we're reading. And again, I'm always looking to sermonize something, but that plays well in our Southwest Virginia, right? Our homes are our oasis, we check out, we get our own peace there. And you get the picture of Jesus using his home maybe for his neighborhood, which I think is very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Matthew chapter 8, starting in verse 5.
ESV. When he had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, appealing to him, "Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, suffering terribly." And he said to him, "I will come and heal him." But the centurion replied, "Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man under authority, with soldiers under me, and I say to one, 'Go,' and he goes, and to another, 'Come,' and he comes, and to my servant, 'Do this,' and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he marveled, and said to those who followed him, "Truly, I tell you, no one in Israel have I found such faith. With no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from east and west and recline at the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And to the centurion Jesus said, "Go, let it be done for you as you have believed." And the servant was healed at that very moment.
The NLT. When Jesus returned to Capernaum, a Roman officer came and pleaded with him, "Lord, my servant lies in bed, paralyzed and in terrible pain." Jesus said, "I will come and heal him." But the officer said, "Lord, I am not worthy to have you come into my home. Just say the word where you are, and my servant will be healed. I know this because I am under the authority of my superior officer, and I have authority over my soldiers. I only need to say, 'Go,' and they go, and 'Come,' and they come. And if I say to my slaves, 'Do this,' they do it." And then Jesus heard this, he was amazed. Turning to those who were following him, he said, "I tell you the truth, I haven't seen faith like this in all of Israel." And I tell you this, that many Gentiles will come from all over the world, from east and west, and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob at the feast of the kingdom of heaven. But many Israelites, those for whom the kingdom was prepared, will be thrown into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then Jesus said to the Roman officer, "Go back home, because you believed it has happened, and your young servant was healed that same hour."
Message. As Jesus entered the village of Capernaum, a Roman captain came up in a panic and said, "Master, my servant is sick. He can't walk. He's in terrible pain." Jesus said, "I'll come and heal him." "Oh, no," said the captain. "I don't want to put you to all that trouble. Just give the order and my servant will be fine. I'm a man who takes orders and gives orders. I tell one soldier go and he goes. To another come and he comes. To my slave do this and he does it." Taken aback, Jesus said, "I've yet to come across this kind of simple trust in Israel, the very people who are supposed to know all about God and how he works. This man is the vanguard of many outsiders who will soon be coming from all directions, streaming in from the east, pouring in from the west, sitting down at God's kingdom banquet alongside Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Then those who grew up in the faith but had no faith will find themselves out in the cold, outsiders to grace and wondering what happened." Then Jesus turned to the captain and said, "Go. What you believed could happen has happened." And at that moment his servant became well. Message does good on this one.
Yeah,
That's a
does
good
great
summary.
job.
Yeah.
Good. He doesn't change it too often.
No.
So just to give us I like maybe think of it in a bullet point where there's a lot of scripture. To me, it's easier to think of it in bullet points. The bullet point is Jesus is interrupted at home in his neighborhood by the Roman centurion. He presents his problem, and then after presenting his problem, point C would be he talks about authority. And then point C would be Jesus teaches the disciples. He turns to the disciples. And then the last one is he heals the servant.
Yeah.
That's how I'd give it, so we could think of it clearly in our minds. So, summary wise, what else would you add to a summary?
I think that summarizes it pretty well.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what do we like, what challenges us.
There's a lot to like about this passage.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of depth to it, too, than just the surface. Obviously, I think you kind of touched on Sunday.
Well, we have to caveat. If you only listen to us also online,
oh yeah,
so sorry, you did not get Sunday's sermon. It did not get recorded, and it is
gone. It's all up here now. But you didn't spend much time, and I think it was worthwhile, not on what everybody typically preaches on with this passage, because that's really easy to see, I think. But it's that underlying depth to this that I like. So, I mean, one of the things that if you touched on a little bit of a centurion, that typically meant they had around 100 people under them that they commanded in battle. But what you didn't touch on is that in order to become a centurion, you were probably a 15-year veteran of the military, unless you just had massive skills and prowess before, and you showed it earlier. But typically they were 10 to 15 years already in service before they could ever become a centurion. And once you were a centurion, there's obviously different levels, but you were given a house, you were allowed a spouse, you were allowed to have children, you were allowed to have servants. Normal Roman soldiers were not allowed those.
I did not know that.
And this guy was most likely somebody who was going to serve until the day he died, or he became too old to be of service to Rome. It was very hard to become a centurion and leave service. It was much, we would consider it a lifelong vet, a lifelong military, 30, 40 years of service, 15 to 55, 60 years old.
Well, now I made the assumption, and I don't know if I read it in a commentary. I try to read 3 commentaries with the passage, but I don't ever remember if I read something or not. Now, I made the assumption he's a Gentile and not a Jew. Is that the right assumption,
Oh, it has
or
to be.
is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Especially where you're saying
Now,
he's career military and like it's taken him time to get there. Like you'd have to be committed
oh, you
to
have to be committed to
Rome.
Rome. You have to
Yeah.
be loyal,
Yeah.
And if you go back to one of our earlier podcasts, when we talked about Rome, and part of the reason why I like Rome is, in order to be a pure servant of Rome, you had to be loyal to Rome to a fault, which also meant you thought Rome was already perfect.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of the fact that he was willing to come to Jesus despite thinking that he was the superior being is pretty cool.
Huh.
And if you think about this, wasn't it wasn't. I don't know how most people think about it, but this wasn't a man who uh, had just been trained. As I said, 15 years. He's probably seen multiple battles. He's killed multiple people. He's got scars all over his body. Um, and so the way we would think about it is this is probably one of the most manly of men's.
Oh yeah.
You cut off his finger, he's going to still keep going, right? So for him to prostrate himself before the Lord is pretty cool too.
Yeah. One of the things that I really like about this passage, and I have to cheat, but the passage before it, and even the next passage, we are watching Jesus include a wide array of people.
Yeah.
And I really think that, like, when you read this, some of us will identify more with one of these than the others. Someone might identify more with the leper than they would with the Roman centurion. I can imagine a person in our world and culture that would be like, oh yeah, I'm more like that centurion.
Yeah.
And someone who, man, they just come from the school of hard knocks and they're like, I'm the leper. Like that's the one I am. And there's going to be more, we won't give it away, but there's going to be more of like, man, Jesus just keeps including and keeps including.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the things I like.
Well, and centurion, I don't know if you knew this, but once you conquer an area, a centurion's role changes if they're still stationed and garrisoned in the area. They go from conquering and leading people in battle and making sure they stay in their lines and follow their commanders. But once they're conquered and they're garrisoned there, their job turns into more of a police force. Their whole job is to make sure the populace doesn't uprise and that crime is taken care of and arresting off. So, takes it into different contexts is this man probably was arresting some of the disciples' friends.
Yeah, there's no doubt this dude was at some level associated with mistreating the Jews.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, one of the things I find fascinating about him, I also like this, is you have folks who would identify with him. They are career military or career first responder, and they use that as an excuse to not make Jesus their Lord.
Sure.
I'm a military man, and it's like, hey, this dude leaves you with no excuse. Like, you're not going to be able to say, well, I did that because I was in the military or I was a police officer. Like, no, this dude, he submitted himself.
Sure. Well, and again, he has probably personally killed probably 100 people, and not in like a, shooting them from 500 yards out. He's had intimate, so for him to say, hey, I submit to the man who is the King of Kings, is even cooler, right? Because imagine the PTSD that, and the trauma that this man has had in his life, and even he could see what the glory of God and Yeah. D- Other cool thing about a centurion is they're not somebody who starts with anything. I mean, some of them are probably homeless orphans
Hmm.
that were said there's no way out. So when they turn the 15, 14 years old, they start service in the military.
Hmm.
And so he's risen to this rank. And so, you know, I love how God does this time and time again. He takes somebody who is the lowest of lows or the worst of worsts and finds a way to point to something greater.
Yeah. So challenging parts of this
Well,
passage.
can I have one more thing I like?
Let's think about it. Sure.
It's
I'd
something.
be I'd be in trouble if I didn't get it. They'd be like, well, we got to know, what does Brandon like?
It's something at the end,
Okay.
and I think it's missed if you're not careful.
All right.
And the servant was healed at that very moment. How in the world would Matthew?
How do they know?
How would they have known?
Yeah.
And the only way they would have known is they had developed a relationship with this man.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's the only way to have known.
He had to follow up with them.
Somebody had to
he
follow
had to come
up.
back.
Yeah.
Someone had to
Yeah.
follow up.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, it could have been Jesus. We talked about this a little bit before. It could have been Jesus discipling him, but that was probably part of it. But I think that either whoever it was, and the Chosen does a really good job with this whole scene. You know, they kind of make it a version of Matthew and Peter are the ones to kind of disciple this man, but one of the disciples has to be spending time in some capacity with this person. Whether it was this person was policing them before, guarding them before, or something, a relationship was not just built in a day. It was built over the course of several months.
Well, that's what I was even going to say is one of the challenging parts of understanding in this passage is to understand, where does this dude get this relationship with?
Yeah.
It just kind of like cold cocks all of us.
Yeah.
And it's like I would have loved to heard, how does he know to even come to Jesus?
Yeah.
Like, how is that a thing for him? How does did he kind of, I made an assumption. I made the assumption that they live in the same community, neighborhood. He's just kind of watching Jesus and he's just seeing what he's doing.
I think that's
And
part of it. I think it's both.
I think you've pointed out another possibility that I didn't consider because of the challenge of this passage, but there is the possibility and the probability that someone inside of Jesus's circle was discipling him.
Yeah.
He was buddies. He met at X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And now they're helping him see Jesus.
Well, I think it has to be both.
Mhm.
And kind of harkening back, this is why I thought that what we talked about earlier really ties well into this passage. You know, if you're a church just doing what we did yesterday, that's not enough either.
Right.
You know, because you're not really fulfilling what Jesus was doing that this centurion followed. So the church also has to serve in the area and find ways to meet the people, and as far as fellowship goes.
Which I think, again, is a challenge of
I was
this
listening
passage.
to, I think it's David Nasser,
Okay.
the guy that used to be the chaplain at Liberty.
Yeah.
And I was listening to him give his testimony. And if you've never listened to it, you should. It's incredible. But kind of the cliff notes, Nasser was born in Iran. His dad was an Iranian commander before the revolution. And so they followed all this strife and all this sort of stuff. They moved to the States through various ways, and it's cool. But they eventually settled in Alabama. And one of his friends, he'll say it. He said we were smoking pot, and he said, "Hey, you ought to come to church tomorrow." Not saying that's what you should do, but this is kind of what changed his life, and so he did. But the reason he did is, you know, his dad was a very committed Muslim, so he thought, I'll tell this guy yes. I'll ask my dad. My dad will be guaranteed to say no. So he asked his dad, and he said, "Well, what church?" So it wasn't a no, it was what church. And he said, "What church?" And he said, "Yeah, you can go." And the reason he said he could go was because his dad owned a restaurant. And that church was eating there and noticed, the choir was eating there and noticed how underserved he was, how understaffed he was, and said, "Hey, can we help?
Yeah.
And so they did. And then he was saying, yeah, I can't get people to fill. And so the choir came back either weekly or daily to help this man um, serve at his restaurant. And so the church had to do both. It had to find a way to have the fellowship, but also had to find a way to go out in the community and say, hey, this is what the church is. And that's what I think it has to be both here, you know.
Oh, I mean, which is part of the challenge of this passage, right? Because if you're a follower of Jesus, you watch Jesus do something very specific here, and he's correcting an injustice of the world. That's
Yeah.
part of what his miracle points to, is how he is bringing back God's original design, God's nature to creation. And so if we're following him, like, we're supposed to see injustices, like we're supposed to notice them um and do something about it, you know. And again, I think one of the fascinating parts of this is that I didn't talk about on Sunday was Jesus says, you'll do greater things than I. You remember when he says that to his disciples? And I think part of that is not they'll do greater miracles, but inside of the set of our ability as humans is to address injustices.
Yeah.
And when there's a million people following Jesus and listening to him and addressing in a community problems that exist, you'll do not greater in the, like the, it's not about the proof or the show, but greater in the number of injustices you address. And so one of the things I thought about was, okay, what injustices am I as a person following Jesus addressing? But what injustices is the church addressing? And how do we do both? And what does that look like? And so I know one of the injustices that this congregation helps to address would be food insecurities.
Yeah.
I thought about even ramping up again this year, you know, just schooling needs. Like, and I know supplies and stuff is already. Did you get sent list already?
No.
We already got sent a list of what we're supposed to bring to school, and I'm like, this could be hard, especially in. No matter how you feel about politics, the economy's not great.
Well,
for a lot of people.
Well, and again, here we talked about it earlier. If the church doesn't fill that role, Satan will.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's through another person, the government, whatever it is, Satan will fill that role.
Yeah.
And so if the church doesn't find ways to step up and help their community, somebody else will.
Yeah. And I think that we have to address problems that we have the ability to address. We can't address all of the injustices in the world. And so, and we can do for one what we wish we could do for everyone.
Well, and the beauty of it is it's kind of the beauty of Christianity in general. One person is enough, because that one person can go after one person.
Yeah.
And now you have two people going after two people, and four people going after four people. And, you know, that simple compounding effect of, there's a pretty famous quote that essentially is kindness compounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if the church only gets after one, that one person maybe gets on fire to go after another one.
Yeah. So I wonder, obviously the greatest injustice we as Christians can address is someone who doesn't know who Jesus is. Mm-hmm. Like, that is the greatest injustice. And I think that's probably part of the problem with the social justice movement inside of the church is they think that I might be part of so I don't know. Anyway, they think that, the greatest problem we can address is X, Y, or Z, but then never go beyond to the actual mission of the church. And so you have to pair both of those together. Mm-hmm. And so, but my brain immediately wants to brainstorm with you. You want to brainstorm for a minute?
We can.
So what are some of the injustices you see in the community we live in, like that we have proximity to. Again, proximity matters because then it gives you the ability to address
Well,
them.
I mean, I'll be simple here. I mean, gasoline prices are hurting a lot in our community, right?
Mhm.
So I hadn't looked at the recent census study, but I think the average family in Smith County makes about $60,000.
Mhm.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's about the number.
Sure.
So when gas prices double like they have, an extra, I mean, for me, I'm spending about an extra $200 a month on gas. That's meaningful when your take home pay is only $5,000 or $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's meaningful.
Oh, yeah.
And so, stuff like that, uh, financial mismanagement seems to be pervasive, not just here, but everywhere, you know.
Yeah.
They have that extra expense and they don't know how to adjust their life for it. And sometimes they can't, and sometimes they can. Um,
Hmm.
um, so as far as brainstorming, I mean, you and I have talked about it. I think the church, and if you're listening and you are struggling, the church would love to help you more than they maybe already have.
Yeah.
But to go an extra layer, there has to be a commitment from both parties.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something slightly political here, and I just don't know how to do it.
All right.
But when I just give you and give you and give you and give you and give you, what do you learn? There's nothing needed from me to get that service.
Mhm.
And so I think that's sometimes where the government has screwed up when they're trying to attack poverty is they give without creating resources to find ways not to come back. And so from a church's standpoint, benevolence can increase. But in order for benevolence to increase, the person has to be willing to sit down and figure out how to change their financial future. Um, yeah, I'm in the financial planning investment world. I have seen people have $1 million in retirement accounts, and they never made more than 60 grand a year. So, similar boat to the other person who has nothing. And it was just the fact that this person made a decision different than that person. And, so I think that's, it's brainstorming stuff. I think, and maybe we need to make that more known for
I
the
like
secondary benevolence, so if
right.
you don't know if you're in a hard time and the church sees you in a hard time, the church will help.
Yeah.
But if you come back a second time, the answer is
Financial coaching.
yeah.
So that's one of the things I thought about when you were like, we do a really good job with that policy, and we make it a policy because I don't want to be a bad guy. And so we always say, well, the policy says because we want to pair both together.
Yeah.
We are going to help, and we want to step out and help. As far as you want to step out, we want to step out too. So like someone in the general community who calls us, and we get them, and they get more, like as the economy gets worse, we get more of them. They just have needs.
Mm-hmm.
We will say, hey, we would love to help. We really do want to help. But your first step is, we have to have relationship with you.
Yeah.
We're not willing to help without relationship. And so what relationship looks like is attending a service on Sunday.
Yeah.
And so someone comes here and attends a service and then says, hey, we have this financial need that we typically help in some way. I've watched insane generosity. Just every once in a while, I have to be like someone, hey, would you come into this meeting with me? Because I don't ever like doing those by myself. And the church has a max of what the church will do the first time. And then I've watched them say, oh, wait, I'll do the rest. And it's like, oh, that's really cool. You see the church just being the church. And so first, they have to have a relationship. But if someone's a part of this congregation and you're watching this video, you're probably part of this congregation.
Yeah.
We want to help. If you're struggling, we want to help. we want a resource.
Mhm.
So that's what he was saying. That's what Brandon was telling me.
Yeah.
The second phase of, hey, we still want to financially help, but you have to talk with someone who can help coach you and, um,
Yeah, it's not just giving, or it's not
yeah,
just taking.
right.
It's I'm going to give something too.
And like the financial coaching's actually, I'm a nerd, and probably about once a year, Dickie and I and Cindy meet.
Yeah.
And so Dickie's like the treasurer of the congregation and been an elder. So in that kind of role, he's very number smart and helps with that. So, all right. Any other injustices?
Oh, there's a lot, but
When you
we
said,
probably don't have full time to talk about all of the injustices.
well, when you said the one you brought up, I wonder, to me, like, we live in a region where you have to travel.
Hmm.
It's not like you're not getting away with,
You can't walk to work.
right. You're not getting away with that.
Yeah.
You've got to travel.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, A plus B, like what does that look like? Because if you got to travel, you got to have gas. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think that was a really good one. And I
Yeah.
don't think about that one a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Any other challenges we have in the passage?
Well, I think you go ahead. I got to come back to what I was thinking.
Okay. I think he says something really hard to the Israelites.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And again, I think part of on a personal level, the challenge is, hey, just because you were born in church doesn't mean you actually understand what God's doing.
Yeah.
And don't assume that you know. Like, and don't assume that, hey, because your family's Christian, that you're Christian. They're different things. And that's kind of what goes on in this, what the Israelites, they just assume because they're born into a certain family, that they're born into the family of God. And that's a big assumption.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's what Jesus is saying to them.
Yeah.
So,
well, challenging thing here for me is allowing myself to be interrupted. You know, we all have something part of us that has been passed down from generation to generation to generation. And I have a unique ability to become obsessed is not the right word, but just I can ignore everything else to focus on whatever task.
focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And useful, but also not useful. Because when you get me off the focus and I have to shift from the focus to something else, it's like a breaking of glass in my head, and I hear this just ringing, and it's hard to shift. So that's the challenge, because you don't know. The beauty of this is Jesus interrupted twice, and both times his response led to something that is greater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to be interrupted and to be interrupted with joy.
All right. So the second two questions
Yep.
are, what do you learn about God, and what do you learn about people? I've not really thought through these questions beforehand, so I always have like the same answers about God, but there's got to be different characteristics of God that we see in these different passages. One of the things I learned, and I learned this by studying is that part of God's original plan was always all nations. It was never just one nation.
Yeah.
Israel was supposed to be God's nation that blessed the other nations, and they forgot that. They were like, "Oh, we're God's people. Let's protect it. Let's be it." But no, their point was always to bless the other nations. Yeah. And so, I'll relearn that Jesus wasn't like God switching his plan. its plan or anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think at some level, this piece was meant for Peter. As far as what we learn about God is it's for everybody, because Peter eventually gets there in Acts 10, right? I kind of wrote that down, and
yeah.
he finally understands when he's preaching that, hey, it's, you know, uh, Jesus showed it to me early. I just probably didn't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
But
So in Acts 10, I love this. Is that the one where
yeah, I was
Paul
talking about.
confronts him? One time Paul has to confront Peter.
I would just wrote what I wrote down was Peter 10:34.
Okay.
So he opened his mouth. Truly understand that God shows no partiality,
Oh,
but in
cool.
every nation, anyone who fears Him and does what is right is acceptable to Him.
Yes. Very cool.
Um,
Yeah.
Something I learned about people.
Okay.
The centurion did not come. So the leper came to Jesus for who?
For who?
For who?
Himself.
The centurion came to Jesus for what?
For
Somebody else.
Yeah.
So that's what I learned about people too, is that, most likely this servant was either his child
Could been.
or the child of his head of household, right?
Yeah.
Somebody that he desperately needed or wanted around. And so that's what when you love somebody enough, you're going to go to the ends of the earth to make sure their needs are met over your own. For a Roman to go to prostrate himself before a Jew was putting everything that he had spent his probably 40 years building and throwing it away for the sake of somebody else.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I learned is this dude doesn't actually make a request. He doesn't actually ask Jesus what to do.
Oh, yeah.
He just presents
just
the
asks
problem.
it. Yep.
He just says, here's the issue. And I wondered, well, the leper makes a request. If you're willing, will you heal me? He makes a request. He says, here's my problem, and if you're willing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wonder, man, the closer you assume you are to God, the more bold you are in making requests. And maybe the further away that you are, the less bold you are to make a specific request. And I'm not being mean to the leper for making a request. Like, I think there's a beauty to that, right? That you, that you know the God of the universe in a way in which to make a specific petition to Him. So I kind of think that.
Well, and it's cool there too that, almost the leper almost asks, the centurion almost commands, right? Not that he commands, but you know what I mean? It's like a difference. There's a difference in the way it's approached.
Yeah. There's a massive difference.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Probably in a lot of, obviously the centurion is probably much more developed in his faith of Jesus than the leper is.
Maybe. There's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
Well, anything else we want to point out?
I don't think so. If you're listening and if you have ways of injustices that the church can solve, two things. If you say, hey, I see this injustice and you see a way to solve it, the church is probably going to say, well, let's fix it together. Not, we'll fix it.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be part of it. But let us know if you do, because
we need to. Maybe you see something we don't see,
right?
So let us know.
Yeah, Justin lives in a bubble, and
he does,
and sometimes I do too.
He does. Justin lives in a crazy bubble. I don't know what goes on in the news. I live in a very crazy bubble.
Me either. I'm not very hip.
Well, will you close us in prayer? Well, the way you can tell us is there's a link in the description. You can communicate with Brandon and I any way you want to. It's anonymous. No one else knows, just Brandon and I. You can even comment, go ahead, comment on YouTube or on Spotify and let other people chime in on your comments.
Yeah. And we haven't forgotten about spiritual gifts. We
We
will get to
haven't.
it.
We
will get
haven't.
to it.
I think I'm going to take it as one of the sermons.
Okay, cool.
Like because the next sermon series is you asked for it. I'm going to take it as one of the sermons, and we're going to address it on a Sunday morning.
I think that's a better way to do it.
I think so too. I think it's a good way to go about it, because it would take the whole podcast.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
For
sure.
So if it's part of the podcast, then it's
yeah, exactly. So we can address it on Sunday morning, and then afterwards we can address it again in the podcast.
Great.
All right. You close us in prayer?
I'll do it.
Thanks, sir.
Lord, thank you for everything you've given us. Thank you for being sovereign over our life. I ask that we do have this simple faith of this centurion who saw everything that was bad around him and said, hey, this is something I need, and I know the Lord will give it. We ask that you bless everything that we do and that we continually find ways to point to you. In your name we pray, amen. Go choose Christ completely.